Welcome to another episode of Skift India podcast. I'm your host, Peden Doma Bhutia, and today joining us is Isha Singh, the co founder of No Footprints, a company that, in its own words, curates niche travel experiences for the discerning traveler. Isha, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on the show.
Likewise, Peden, thank you so much for having me.
Isha, could you tell us a bit about your journey and what inspired you and Harsh to launch Mumbai by Dawn back in 2014? Did you really think that the inbound market in India was ready for a product like the one that you were launching?
So we were actually both before we started our journey in tourism with this tour, and actually one more tour called the Mumbai Dream, which was a Bollywood-inspired tour. We launched with these two tours, and before we did that, we were both holding creative marketing jobs. I was working in creative marketing at Time Out India from Mumbai, and Harsh was a copywriter. And we were both very passionate about um, just generally uh, walks and heritage tours, which was a little uncommon, as an interest that we see among domestic audiences right now. And we'd attended both um, uh, tours in India and overseas. And I think when we attended our walks in India, we were already getting excited about what the potential held because we thought that the conversations in India were very history focused. Like there was a disproportionate amount of focus on history for someone on a holiday. And we thought that they were very, very fact driven, very one sided in that sense conversations. And when we traveled overseas, it's not like we did very like immersive tours. We did regular walking tours, but we thought the storytelling was very, very refreshing. And that kind of initially was the start of um, us wanting to start something within travel where we wanted to bring refreshing, more personalized storytelling. We wanted to be the funny folks. We wanted to look at storytelling from the lens of almost like stand-up comedy. And Mumbai by Dawn was, I think, definitely like came from the passion for the city. I think particularly from my partner Harsh, because he's just always been in love with the city. He would just take random walks anywhere at any hour. Um, and I think the story of Mumbai by Dawn reflects the story of Mumbai so well, which is why we were so keen on launching it because unlike other cities like Delhi and Jaipur, where I think living heritage, where heritage of like in intangible structures like monuments, like meet your eye so much and so often. Mumbai, what is so exciting is that there is living heritage like all around us. Um, and on a walk at like 5 a.m., we discovered that wow, this is insane. Like it almost feels like you're the only person who's not waking up at 5 a.m. because this whole idea about like Mumbai's hardiness, Mumbai's spirit, Mumbai's
I
like
guess yes, and I guess Mumbai is best experienced, before the chaos sets in, before everything goes back to just going from one place to the other. I think it's best to see the city at this point in time, wherein everything is very
absolutely.
still and calm.
Absolutely. And I think the actually the abundance of this idea about like Mumbai being the trade capital and being the host of so many communities, you can see through this tour. Right from the fishing industry, which is the profession of the first inhabitants of the city, to the migrant community. It's all just thriving businesses and how that impacts lives, how that kind of like gives you a glimpse into gender at work. Those are the kind of wonderful sights that you can see on this tour. So much so that I think we've heard from a lot of our guests that now that when we eat a fish thali, we look at so differently after we've done this Mumbai by Dawn. So we were very excited about it. It
So, Isha, can you also explain what exactly does Mumbai by Dawn? I'm sure my listeners would want to know what exactly does a Mumbai by Dawn trip entail?
So the Mumbai by Dawn trip basically entails, like I said, it's basically seeing Mumbai's communities at work at dawn.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. This is the fishing community as well, right? I mean,
the
you
fishing
take them there.
community, the migrant community, which is a lot of like street-based businesses, so whether it's the flower market or the vegetable markets, you see all of these communities kind of interact with each other right before your day has even started. So that is a glimpse of Mumbai's several communities that work at 5 a.m.
Okay, Isha, from boring history lectures to storytelling, it's truly impressive how No Footprints has evolved to encompass a range of community focused tours. You've from Parsis and East Indians, and to the involvement of the queer community as well. Could you also share more about your vision for, kind of mainstreaming conversations about culture, people, and communities through these unique tour experiences?
Right. I think so. Mumbai by Dawn gave us definitely the impetus to go on. That was definitely the start, and when I think it took us a while to take off, and then we started receiving. I mean, today it's become uh, a mention alongside places like Taj Mahal and places like Chandni Chowk. So to say, on an inbound tourist itinerary. So that feels like a great achievement, and that was the impetus we needed to know that okay, we can continue to build itineraries where we are enabling people meet other people. I think that's what the part we were most excited about, that how can we get community stories out in a way that people get to interact with other people. um, because by the time with Mumbai by Dawn success, we'd understood that people like to see other people. And I think this was also the time maybe on social media where Humans of New York had kind of taken off in a big way. So I feel like that was the other example that you could see, that there were pretty much like rise of pages and publications which were about people's stories. And so we wanted to, and this was, what excited us personally, and we wanted to go on about it. As allies of several movements, we also wanted to um, support marginal voices and bring out those stories, in mainstream tourism. So with the impetus that we got, we started kind of pushing the narratives for Parsis, East Indians, and finally the queer history in Mumbai.
Yeah, I kind of feel that one of the standout aspects for me for No Footprints is its commitment to highlighting certain neglected conversations. Your
Correct.
tours and experiences provide a platform not just for not just for long lost art and culture, but it also gives them a platform to tell their story. Otherwise, that would have remained in obscurity.
Correct. Correct. Correct.
So,
It's
yeah. Sorry, please go ahead.
it's definitely it's definitely something that uh, we're attempting to do. I wouldn't know how much of credit we can take about helping.
Yeah, but it's always good to make a start. At least somebody is starting from somewhere, right?
Absolutely, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. That's the hope. Yes, yes.
And it's also fascinating that you've hosted some very well known celebrities like Tom Holland, Zendaya, Gigi Hadid, and of course Nigella Lawson as well. So how do these exposures tie into the broader narrative of No Footprints and helps you support the communities?
Right. So I think the celebrities doing our tours is undeniably uh, great PR for us. I think in some sense we also understand celebrities. They have very very few hours, and um, we're also very, very keen on making City 101 conversations very refreshing and very fun. So we understand that the celebrity might just have a couple of hours to offer in the city, and our aim is to ensure that they feel like they hung out with, someone who gave them time, like a friend, They got a few laughs, and they really understood the city in the couple of hours that they
Does
could
it
give.
also give them exposure to a certain section of community that they would not have otherwise known about? And does
Absolutely.
it also help to highlight, some of these communities and the plights that they face?
Absolutely. So, for instance, not all of them, because they don't have that kind of bandwidth when they arrive into the city. But for instance, Nigella Lawson, I'm glad you mentioned her. She took a lot of time to understand, the Koli community. She took a work with us to understand the Buri community, and she tried that food. In fact, she called vada pav her favorite dish of 2017. And so she understood how the Malvan masala is
Yeah,
made.
and Nigella Lawson calling vada pav something would definitely make headlines, right?
Yeah, that was amazing. Sanjeev Kapoor recently in Delhi did a whole tour with us to understand the Delhi refugee community, and we do a tour on the community through the lens of food and how international communities are kind of reclaiming their identities through food. And he did that tour. So there are several celebrities who also have the bandwidth to engage with us on the work that we're very, very passionate about, but we're also very, very happy to have celebrities like say Gigi Hadid and Zendaya who don't have that kind of time. They are there for something else. They have a couple of hours to hang out in the city. They just want to do the city from the classic what is Mumbai and what is Mumbai's history, that kind of lens. And we also want to do that 101 piece in a really fun way. And that I think that is where also we understand them really well.
Yeah, and while on the topic of celebrities, let me talk about the latest celebrity, the biggest celebrity in tourism right now, which is the Indian traveler.
Correct.
While pre-COVID, you were mostly catering to the inbound market. How did things change post-COVID as far as your target market was concerned, and how do you now look into the domestic market?
So I think we've been lucky to be at the right place at the right time. In some sense, we had no options but to diversify into other spaces. One of the things that we did was because of our storytelling, that other folks had witnessed, we offered some kind of training programs to hospitality partners. But the other thing that we did was that we started offering week on week because domestic audience is pretty much weekend business. We started offering these immersive workshop-led tours on the weekends to the domestic audience. It was also interesting why I say that we were at the right place at the right time, because the local audience, because they had no access to travel outside of their city, started doing a lot of backyard tourism where they wanted to just learn a lot more about their city. And learning interesting things was taking definitely a big form in COVID. Everybody wanted to learn some kind of workshop, so we kind of fit in this space beautifully about learning about your own city, not just with of course our target audience remains anything between the age groups of 20 to 40, but I also like the fact that we started engaging with schools who, because of this kind of learning about their own city, they realize that the curriculum needs to have certain kind of integrations where kids learn about the city, and that's interact with the city on ground to have more respect for it. So it was in the sense that like the domestic audience was changing their preferences because of COVID, and we were right there to offer them something.
I mean, if you can elaborate a little bit more on how the Indian domestic traveler has changed. I asked this because I was at the launch of Marriott's co-branded credit card in Mumbai. It is the first such hotel co-branded credit card in India, and at the launch, the buzzword that I heard was experiences. You know,
Mhm.
they talked a lot about how Indian travelers are now more keen on experiences than simply ticking off a bucket list. So,
Correct.
how has the Indian traveler, according to you, changed? From being more about immersive experiences.
Absolutely, I fully agree with them. I think this is the change that we saw as well. When we launched these experiences, we were not sure if the domestic traveler would want to take them on. But I think there was a growing need for wanting to do something beyond dining options, beyond like food and drink in the city. And I think, like I said, I think COVID kind of spearheaded that because you didn't have access to do much. So you were looking at like there was this heightened need to find experiences within the city, and in that sense, we were definitely there to meet that kind of gap. With the domestic traveler, we always see that, like, I think highlighting a current conversation with a workshop is something that gives, I think, domestic travelers a sense of purpose. Um, and that's where I think like it also matches our core philosophy as well. So it's it works out wonderfully. So I'll give you an example. For instance, we recently did a foraging workshop with key voices for
Sorry, what
save.
workshop?
So we did some foraging workshop for
Okay, okay.
with partnering with key voices in the Save the RA Forest movement. We have worked with BNHS in Mumbai to understand wildlife conservation, to tackle the conversation of leopard and human interaction. We work with works. Sorry,
RA
you were saying?
Forest would be the one in Bombay.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay,
Currently,
okay.
in Mumbai and Delhi, both we were before COVID working on just pop-ups when it came to the local audience. But only after COVID we started doing regular walks for weekends in Mumbai, and in Delhi we're yet to do that. It's a new city, so we're still developing product.
Um, it's interesting that you talk about so much. You talk about conservation. You talk about bringing marginalized people into the mainstream society. Uh, Booking.com in a recent survey had spoken about how LGBTQI travelers and about how travel companies play a crucial role as allies in creating a more inclusive environment and implementing inclusive policies for these travelers. How do you see? I mean, like, not specifically about no footprints, but how do you see tour companies in India helping to make this change?
I think it's definitely I'm in agreement with that thought, and I think like why we've also felt very passionate about travel is because of that being a vehicle for people to interact with each other, people to be able to potentially lose their biases and see things, in local contexts and hear it from people directly, the stories. And I think that like queer history is Indian history, and I think what was happening in India, why we launched this particular tour was because a lot of people were confusing queer tours with queer friendly tours. So what we were finding online was that itineraries in India was saying that you will basically be given by somebody who's not a queer phobic driver or a queer phobic hotel. You will, stay at a friendly hotel. You will have not a queer phobic guide, but essentially you were doing the same conversation of whatever, like Humayun's tomb, Qutub Minar, etc., etc. We needed people to understand queer narratives, and so whether that is in Delhi or in Mumbai, where we want people to understand queer history and queer subculture. So in Mumbai, we partnered with this queer activist and playwright. His name is Estefan, and only queer tour leaders lead this work because a lot of this work is personal, and it's about like their journey, it's about coming out, and them using tools like fashion to subvert other interactions of their queer identity like caste and class, etc. So it's a tour in that sense. It's almost like an oral history each time, and it kind of
So it's
evolves
about
actively.
it's also about involving these people, right? I mean, like, they are queer leaders who lead the tour, right?
Absolutely,
It's so
absolutely
basically what you're saying is that before, when you said a queer friendly tour, it would have been a driver who was not biased against certain
correct.
communities, certain people, and
Correct.
hotels that were not biased against. So, but it was
Correct.
basically the tour was the usual, the Humayun Qutub Minar tour, Humayun Tomb Qutub Minar tours that were being done.
Correct, correct. Or gateway of, and basically the colonial history of Mumbai, that kind of tour.
Uh huh.
Um, and yeah, and to us, I think in the ways that we were working, we wanted to bring the queer narrative out of the history, of
Okay.
that history, which we felt was like under wraps when it came to tourism. And
Amazing.
so it was exciting because queer folks not only do they lead the tours, but they do also very, very interesting workshops. We do a workshop on drag by a drag artist. There is a very, very lovely art workshop that we do around the concept of coming out. What is the whole idea of normal? So it's actually a wonderful tour for anyone who is, generally an enthusiast and interested in understanding these narratives well. But yeah, I think the idea was to bring out that Indian history is queer history, and that's not being talked about. All we're saying is that currently that we're just not going to discriminate against you if you're a queer tourist. And we felt that there was a need to do a tour focused on queer history and not just assure people that okay, you're not going to get basically um, someone who's going to judge you. Um, you know.
Correct. Okay. Thank you so much, Isha. It's been a really insightful conversation. Your dedication in bringing lesser known stories to the forefront and empowering communities is truly commendable. Thank you for joining us today and sharing the journey of No Footprints. And thank you to our listeners for tuning in to this episode of the Skift India podcast. We hope our conversation today has inspired you to explore the rich tapestry of culture, people, and communities that often go unnoticed. Remember to subscribe to the Skift India podcast on your favorite listening app for more insightful discussions about India's journey on the global stage. Thank you and have a great day and a week ahead. Thank you, Isha.
Thank you so much for having me. This was wonderful. Thank you.
This has been the Skift India Travel Podcast. Thank you for listening.